As you know, the MCU's prime has been fading since the completion of the Infinity Saga, and when I saw the trailer for the Suicide Squad Marvel Edition, my expectations weren't entirely high. But I am pleased to say that Marvel has proven me wrong. I was wrong, ladies and gentlemen, and I am not ashamed to admit it. Thunderbolts was a pleasant surprise, and I'm here to tell you about it. I'm going to break down Thunderbolts into 3 sections: the pros, the cons, and the final rating. This is not a spoiler-free review, so if you haven't watched it yet, I suggest you go do that, bozo, because it is a very solid project, and it is worth going to the theaters to see. I'm not known for wasting time, so let's get right into the pros.
For God's sake, it's not much.
You keep your fucking voice down.
The first thing I noticed about Thunderbolts is that it is a very, very funny movie. Dare I say, the most humorous MCU movie to date. The chemistry between each member of the Thunderbolts is spectacular. The chemistry alone almost warrants its own section on this video, but they kind of go hand in hand. You can thank John Walker and Red Guardian for this, much like he did in Black Widow, even though it wasn't that hard because Black Widow's movie was garbage. Red Guardian stands out as the most lovable character on screen at any given time. However, for me personally, US Agent was clearly the best part of this movie. I'm glad to see the John Walker slander has come to an end.
I don't think so.
Junior Varsity, Captain America.
I have been a fan of Walker since the days of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and to see him carry parts of the Thunderbolts was just awesome. Another thing the Thunderbolts did really well is that they treated each individual character with respect.
When I ripped my pants.
Except for Taskmaster, but nobody really cares about that bump. What I mean by this is that they all are mercenaries or super soldiers, and they're treated like mercenaries and super soldiers. They didn't make stupid mistakes, they didn't win or lose fights they weren't supposed to, and most of all, they did not nerf Sentry in any way. Now, I know that you know how the MCU moves when it comes to OP characters from the comics. Biggest example of this is obviously the Hulk, but we all know how I feel about the Hulk in the MCU. Sentry did not receive this treatment. This motherfucker was a menace, and there was not a single way that this team of bums could pose any threat to Sentry, and they didn't, which I appreciate more than you know. I always think back to DC, the Suicide Squad, and how in both versions of these movies, the Suicide Squad was vastly outmatched by the villain. I mean, Enchantress and Starro, what in the absolute fuck would these clowns do to those god-level villains? This is not a problem in Thunderbolts. The audience knew they couldn't beat Sentry, Sentry knew they couldn't beat Sentry, and they knew they couldn't beat Sentry, which will bring up a problem later in the video, but we'll talk about that when we get to that. However, the biggest pro of this project is simply that you can care about each member individually. Each member of the Thunderbolts is a complicated character. Not heroes, not villains, just very gray overall. This, paired along with the messages of mental illness, paints a pretty nuts picture. Usually, my biggest issue with Suicide Squad type comic book movies is that more than likely you won't give a shit about every character on the team. I hate to keep beating a dead horse, but that was my biggest problem with DC's Suicide Squad. You spend like half of the movie getting introduced to a bunch of rejects trying to cram their sad backstory into your head, so that when they finally find their place in the world, you're supposed to feel happy for them. But again, you just met these ass clowns, so it's kind of like, who cares? How is Thunderbolts different from this? Well, every character besides Sentry in this movie was introduced before this project. So instead of cramming their sad backstory into your head in the first 30 minutes, everybody already knows what happened. Everybody already knows the tragedy of the Winter Soldier. Everybody saw the downfall of John Walker in real time in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Everyone is aware of what the Red Room did to Yelena. Basically, you already feel bad for these characters pre-Thunderbolts. I have to say, the setup for this movie was very impressive. It feels like everything that happened to these characters in the MCU happened for this movie. So when the audience finally sees them reaching their potential that these characters were always meant to reach in the story, you can't help but feel good about it. Like, yeah, clap for these motherfuckers right now. While I do think Thunderbolts is a good step in the right direction for Marvel, that does not mean this movie is without flaw. I only have 2 major problems with Thunderbolts, although they are pretty substantial. The first problem being, as I've seen many people say before, Thunderbolts is an extremely predictable movie. Honestly, all you need to do is watch the trailer and you can kind of map out how the entire movie is going to go. It's a very quote-unquote power of friendship-esque film, and this kind of causes the storyline to be quite familiar. A group of outlaws and forgotten heroes yearning for a family, eventually finding it with each other through trials and tribulations. Now, this alone wouldn't be that big of a deal. However, Thunderbolts goes one step further. Not only is the Thunderbolts extremely predictable by itself, but the after-credit scene completely spoils the new Fan 4 movie coming this year.
Gotta say, it's fantastic.
Major spoilers ahead. The end credit scene contains the Thunderbolts spotting a Fan 4 rocket ship entering their timeline, effectively telling the audience that the Fan 4 will lose against Galactus and be forced to travel to Earth 616, leaving their universe behind. Basically, it just showed us the ending of the new Fan 4 movie. Unless this is a red herring, I have no idea why they would do this. The next problem I had with Thunderbolts was the lack of a real villain presence. Now you might be wondering, didn't you say earlier in the video that Sentry was going crazy or that these types of teams shouldn't have god level villains?
Bro, I'm really about to get your pickle chin that boy.
Well, yes, but just because I said there shouldn't be god level villains doesn't mean there shouldn't be any villain at all. And yes, Sentry did go crazy for a few scenes, but I also did say that the Thunderbolts team really had 0 ways to beat Sentry in an all-out fight. With this fact, do not go into Thunderbolts expecting a big fight at the end of the movie because there just won't be. As I said, the power of friendship is dominant in this movie, and when it's all said and done, Sentry/Void caused no real damage to anything or anyone in this movie.
Sorry.
Fuck you, Mike.
Sorry.
Fuck you. What the fuck are you doing?
Some could argue that Valentina was the real villain of Thunderbolts, but even if I gave you that, it doesn't really change this problem. Valentina is basically just the Marvel Amanda Waller, and while she is a devious woman, it's not like she could do any real damage to any of these characters. With the power that Sentry has, there's just no way this movie could have ended any differently. They had to beat the Void with love, which did feel a little unfulfilling, but not anything to completely change my opinion on this one.
Boy, if you don't...
Overall, Thunderbolts was good. Nothing spectacular, nothing awful. I saw some people say it's a top 3 or top 5 Marvel movie, and unfortunately, it's not. It's just a solid project that you can have a good time with and maybe rewatch on a rainy day. I feel like 3.5 out of 5 stars is the perfect rating for this one. I love the direction they went with Thunderbolts and hope to see more projects with this same tone in future MCU movies.
Animal, a deranged animal! You're fucking...
I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments what you think of the Thunderbolts and what else you'd like me to talk about. I'll see you guys in the next video.